Hello everyone, and welcome to the second part of my modding tutorial series. And in this part, we will start to actually create content for our mod. And first things first, I promised that all the files would be available in Git, and I didn't do that in the first episode. So let me just create a new Git repository for this thing, and let's make it public. And this will go into my GitHub. Let's add a README. Okay. So I have already logged in with my GitHub credentials into Visual Studio, so I can just push this project in there. Okay, so I have now my commit for the first episode, and now we can start actually working on adding the item. And I want to find where in the game all the items are defined, because we need to add a new definition for an item. So the way I will do this, let's assume that I have no idea where that item is actually, where the items are defined. So I would go to the modules directory on my command line. So this is the theme path and the modules directory inside Bannerlord, and I would just copy this to my preferred command line. And using the rip grep tool that we set up in the previous part, I would look for beer. I want to find where beer item is defined. So I would just look for beer, and we see that I get too many results because these are all some object in the scenes, like beer barrels or beer mugs in all the game scenes. So this is too many results. So I need to search for something that starts with double quote beer, because you can see if I search for double quote beer, you can see that I get only exactly the place where this item with ID beer is defined. So the way I search for, I need to escape this double quote to search for some string that contains double quote. So this is called escaping. So when there is like when you have character that has special meaning. So in this case, if I just try to write double quote here, it will interpret the double quote as like starting a string. So if I search for beer in double quotes, those double quotes will just disappear. So I need to escape this double quote in the beginning to search for that. And the way you do that in PowerShell is with \backtick, and this is kind of, it might depend on your command line a bit. So if I, for example, I chose cmd.x instead of PowerShell, it would actually be a bit different. It would be just like this, I think, without the backtick. But the \backtick is a PowerShell thing. If you use some other command line, maybe the escape sequence will be a bit different. But anyway, getting to the point, this gives us this file where this item is defined. So we use this to search for double quote beer, and it gave us that the only place where we have double quote beer is in sandbox core, module data, items, horses and others.xml. So this horses and others.xml is the place where the item that we want to copy, in this case beer, is defined. So then I would just go to sandbox core, module data, items, and look for horses and others. And I would copy this to my module data. So you see this was in module data, and we need to put our data XMLs in module data as well. So I would just copy this, name it items, or I can name it something else actually. Let's name it like beer item, just so that we have to change some strings later, so you see how that works. And let's name this beer item. And the way I would set up my editors in this case is that I open Visual Studio Code here. So I right click my module, Artisan beer, and open with code. And I will use the Visual Studio Code for my XML editing. So I can go to module data and beer item.xml, and this has all the stuff that we don't want in it because we only want the beer item. So we can just go to search for beer with Control F, beer. And then I will select everything I don't want. So I will put my cursor at the beginning of the item, and then I can press Control Shift Home to go to the top of the file, delete everything I didn't like. Then this item here is where beer starts, and there's matching closing thing here. So this is where the beer ends. So I will also select everything after this and delete everything else. So there I pressed Control Shift End to go to the end of the file. You can select and edit the files however you like, but I want to describe how I did it. And this is the name for our item, which will be Artisan here. Oh, and by the way, all this stuff is localization things that we can do later, but for now we don't care about localization, so we don't need to worry about that. So we just replace this with Artisan beer. The mesh is fine for now. Item category, not sure what this is exactly, but we can change that as well. And this will not be food, so it will not be something that people will eat all the time. Let's increase the value a bit. Let's put 100 there and weight, decrease the weight to 10. I don't need this, I don't think. This was something about morale. I don't know what that is exactly, so I don't think we need that. So this will be our new Artisan beer item. So one more thing we need to look here is the item ID. So right now I didn't change it yet, so it is set to beer, but there is already item with the ID beer in the game. And if we leave it this way, this will actually replace the existing beer item. That's not quite what we want. So let's just give this new unique ID. So let's call it Artisan beer. And now instead of replacing the beer, we will get completely new type of item. There is one more thing that we need to do to get our XML into the game. And that is that we need to tell the game that this new XML file exists that we made. And to do that, let's go check how it is done in the sandbox core. So in the submodule.xml file, they have these XML nodes. So each of these XML nodes tells the game about one type of item or one type of XML that is in the module data folder. So if we just copy this and put it into our submodule.xml, and here you actually have to be careful to edit the one in Visual Studio because this is the authoritative version. And the one in our, because we have two folders right now. We have the one that was created by the template, and we have the other folder that is in the game directory. So this one that is in our template folder, in our source, that will replace the one in our module folder every time. So we have to put this here so that the changes will actually stay. And I just copy this and I close the XML stack. And this here is the type of file. So this will link it to item object in the game. So this file defines new items. And this was beer item. Right, this is the path. Inside here in my Artisan beer module data beer item.xml. And the .xml part, we don't need to write that. And these are just the game types where these items will be enabled, and this is fine. So now, if we launch this, or if we rebuild the solution, just to make sure that it will actually copy the XML to the module folder, because sometimes if you just launch, it might not, if you haven't done code changes, it might not actually rebuild the project. So let's just make sure that we rebuild it, and then we can launch. And once we are in game, I will create a new save with our modules enabled, and that way I can later enable continue game, which will let us get into the save faster. So we don't have to go through this again. So now that we have a new sandbox, I would just make a save here. And we can check that the save has the correct modules for us. So the module template automatically depends on Harmony. So we have Harmony, and then we have our Artisan beer module. So it has loaded all the correct modules, and now we have save with the correct modules. And if you have cheat mode enabled, so let's enable cheat mode. So I press Alt and tilde to enable to open the console, and then I can write config.cheatmode1 to enable cheat mode. And you might have to do that again every time you start it. But for me, when I'm developing, I have set it so that the cheat mode is enabled by default in the engine config. So the cheat mode will give us this inventory with every type of item. And here you can see that every type of item indeed contains our Artisan beer object. And we can just take these items from here. And right now, they don't do anything yet, but we can put them into my inventory and save as well. Now let me show, now that we have this save with our modules, I would go into launch settings and edit this command line with continue game, this string continue game. And what that does is the same as the continue in the launcher. So this button here. So now that we have the continue game here, when I press launch, it will go directly into our latest save. And that's pretty much everything I would do for my test setups. And we have our item. So we have successfully changed the game in some way. We have added item that is for now completely useless, but it is the start. So now you see we went directly into our save game, and this is convenient for testing. But that's all for now. And the next episode, we will make this item heal us in combat. So it will start to actually be useful. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next episode soon.